there, Tim Lee with Brewster Consulting Group, back to talk to you a little bit more about the PMO. In our first video, which you haven't watched, I'll link right up here, we talk about what the PMO is, when it can be used, and the high-level goals of a project management office. Today, we're going to dive a little deeper and talk more nuts and bolts about project management methodology and the high-level phase gates of a project. Now, before we dive into what I want to cover, I've got to tell you that Brewster Consulting Group did not come up with this methodology. The Project Management Institute, or PMI, is widely regarded as the gold standard for all things project management related, and much of what we're going to talk about today comes from their methodology. I am a certified project management professional, or PMP as you might have heard it referred to, and I'll be referencing their materials throughout the video. So let's dive right in. When you're thinking about running a project, the great news is that there's a repeatable process that you can follow that decreases the chances of your project failing. Remember from our last video, we learned that one of the primary goals of a PMO is to implement projects on time, on budget, and within the agreed upon scope. And we're going to give you some of the tried and true ways that you can make sure the next time you're running a project, it goes according to the plan. When that happens, it creates a more predictable business environment for your leaders. And that usually means more revenue coming in the door, and we all like that. When we talk about the anatomy of a good project, there's 5 primary process groups that we refer to. Process groups can be reviewed as the various phases of a project. The 5 primary groups are initiation, planning, executing, monitoring and controlling, and finally closing. Throughout each process group, there are various deliverables that make sure you've done everything you need to do before you move on to the next process group. These deliverables involve repeatable processes no matter the project. As you go through these process groups and the phase gates, you're building muscle memory so that the next time you lead a project, it continues to become a natural part of how you lead, which is a really cool progression. So during the initiation process group, your goal as the project manager is to end up with a project charter. A project charter is a document that contains all of the necessary information for you to begin adequate planning, which is the next process group. The project charter also gives the project manager authorization to begin project planning, wrangle the resources that are necessary for the project, and start mapping out the path to project completion. Questions like, who are my stakeholders and who's my project champion, are answered during this process group. Your goal during this part of the project is to build the foundation on which you're going to use to plan your project. At Brewster Consulting Group, we believe the planning process group is the most important of them all. The goal of the planning phase is to come up with a formal project plan. If you don't allocate the time to plan your project effectively, the plans you're going to use to implement are going to cause you frustration among your stakeholders. It's going to cause delays in schedule, and it's going to blow your budget way out of the water. If you follow the appropriate steps during the planning phase, there's about 20 checklist items that you as the PM can shepherd your team through. Most of them really don't take a long time. They're just really important to your project integrity. Things like collecting your requirements or creating a work breakdown structure, nailing down your project schedule and finalizing the budget, and planning for risk management are all crucial functions of the planning process group. Once you've got a concrete plan, well, you're ready to execute. While planning is the most important process group, I think executing is the most fun because you actually get to do what you set out to do. This is a true test of how good your planning effort was. In addition to actually executing your plan, things like actually acquiring your project team, conducting quality assurance, and communicating with your stakeholders are all crucial components. During execution, I would also encourage you to begin collecting lessons learned. This is going to help you improve your methodology and your style whenever you go to implement your next project. Monitoring and controlling is the next process group. Here's where you see how successful your planning and your executing efforts have been. Think of this project phase as maintaining and optimizing what you've just put into place or implemented. Things like controlling your costs or performing integrated change control and validating your scope against the results are critical components of this process group. The final process group of good project management is closing. If you've planned your project adequately, executed on your plan well, and monitored the results, closing your project is actually pretty easy. An official project closing releases all of the resources and the project manager from the project. We talked at the beginning about how a project has a finite start and end point. Well, this is the end point. Once your closing documents are actually signed, it's time to start the process all over again on your next project. At Brewster Consulting Group, we have a really strong project management culture, and we keep up on all the best practices. If your organization happens to be struggling with good project management, we'd love to help you in any way that we can. We hope you guys enjoyed this video and maybe learned a new thing or two that you can use next time you go to implement a project. Thanks.